So I recently put up a poll on the community tab asking you guys what the reason or reasons, plural, are for why someone with locks thin out over time. Today we're going to be talking about those reasons, so let's get to it. Welcome back to the Atreyu Locs channel. Hi, I'm Atreyu, a semi-free farmer who is dedicated to bringing you guys the best tips to grow a healthy set of locks. If this is your first time, make yourself comfortable. I am glad to have you. So many of you who have been subscribed to the channel for a while, you already know the answer to this. You know that it's not just from too much maintenance. I feel like even people who don't have locks know that, hey, if you do too much maintenance, you're gonna thin your hair out, whether that hair is in the form of locks or if you got cornrows, loose hair, loose natural hair, loose relaxed hair, whatever, that hair is gonna thin out if you do too much maintenance. But for those of you who have been watching my videos, you know that there is this other insidious reason why people actually thin out, namely from too little maintenance. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with this reason, allow me to educate you. So some people with locks have hair that grows away from their locks, meaning their new growth does not grow into their locks. And then you have other people who have locks whose hair grows into their locks. I am someone who has hair that grows away from my locks. So that means that as that new growth grows out, it does not go into my lock. And as hairs shed naturally, because every hair is only assigned a certain amount of time before it dies and sheds, the lock eventually thins out with time from those hairs shedding, right? And if new hairs are not being put into the lock, are not growing into the lock, then inevitably that lock will thin out with time. So for people who have hair that grows away from their locks, it is possible for their locks to thin out with time because they do too little maintenance. I'm not saying to go from one extreme, too little maintenance or maybe no maintenance, to the other extreme, too much maintenance, where you're gonna thin out from things like traction alopecia. No, there is a spectrum, and there is this in-between sweet spot for those of us who have hair that grows away from our locks, where we can do maintenance every so often, just enough maintenance to get those hairs reincorporated into the lock so that it remains strong indefinitely. Okay, so you can thin out from too much maintenance, you can thin out from too little maintenance. The other reason that I mentioned in the poll was from genetics. And yes, you can thin out from genetics. Yes, you can also thin out from genetics, right? And that's something that you really just have no control over. Now, recently, hey, if you are enjoying this video, don't forget to smash the subscribe button and hit the notification bell so that you are notified every single time I upload. How about that? And when I say recently, I mean like within the past year. I believe that one of the main reasons that my hair was starting to thin out was not from the fact that I was doing too little maintenance, because I know about different techniques like the braid technique to help with that. And so I am getting those hairs incorporated back into my locks so that they don't thin out. Maybe some amount of it is from genetics, right? Because I told you guys that balding does run in my family. But I believe the main culprit this past year for my hair thinning was because of the seborrheic dermatitis. And I just made a video last week kind of giving you guys an update about that and what I'm doing a year later after that diagnosis. So be sure to check that out if you have not already watched it. Because I have seborrheic dermatitis, I scratch. I have an itchy scalp. And I've tried a myriad of things. I've tried, dairy products. I don't put any oils on my scalp. I've tried different things. Thank you guys, by the way, for all the suggestions. I know you're just trying to help. But I've tried those things, and, I still have an itchy scalp. Certain shampoos, all that. Granted, it's not as bad as it has been. So I still see myself as having made progress where that is concerned. But especially in the earlier days, like relatively soon after that seborrheic dermatitis diagnosis, my scalp was just really itching, and it was itching to the point where it was maddening, and I just had to scratch to try to give myself some relief. With all the scratching, that is basically a form of tension being applied to your scalp. You are able to do damage to the follicles by scratching your hair. And so I started to thin out. But because I am a semi-freeformer, I'm not applying tension, besides the scratching, which lessened over time, to my hair all that often in the form of retwists, right? And so what has happened over this time, over the next several months, is that those hairs have started to grow back. Never in almost 7.5 years have I had like hair sprouting up in places that it never had before. And I'm going to show you what I mean. So right here, I don't know if you guys can see this, but this is new growth, right? And it's new growth that is situated in a spot that it's not really meant to go into any of the nearby locks, right? And for those of you who are wondering, no, this is not a lock that broke off, right? You would be able to tell it would be locked. This is now just starting to kind of tangle up there. Okay, so this is new growth from a place in my scalp that was super thin because of all the scratching. Okay, so what I wanted to show you guys is that one of the best things, and Yanni suggested this years ago and she continues to suggest it, if your scalp starts to thin out for whatever reason, whether it's too much maintenance or in my case scratching, which is tension, then just stop. And if you're lucky, you have not done too much damage and that hair will grow back. So hopefully this video will serve as some sort of encouragement to you that, hey, if you are thinning right now at the scalp, then it's possible that you can reverse that by doing the opposite of what you've been doing that got you there in the first place. And so, yeah, here's this little patch of hair that I have to figure out what to do. I know some people, Mass Naturals, I think she starts new locks with it, but I'm not gonna do that. The discrepancy is too much. I'm not gonna have this little bit and then it trying to thrive with something that's that long. Like it just doesn't work for me. So I'll probably just divvy up the hair and put the hairs in the surrounding locks. So just in case you guys are still wondering about the answer to the poll that I posted, there are multiple reasons why your locks can thin out. They can thin out from too little maintenance, they can thin out from too much maintenance, they can thin out from genetic reasons, they can thin out for all of those reasons, and there are even other reasons that your locks can thin out that I didn't mention, such as having seborrheic dermatitis and you scratching. But there's hope. So if you find yourself with a scalp that is thinning, then stop your maintenance and see if it won't grow back, okay? In addition to that, drink plenty of water, eat healthily, and yeah, you might just be surprised, like I am with this little bad patch right here. Bad in a good way. Alright guys, that is gonna be it for today's video. I would love to hear your thoughts on this, especially if you participated in the poll. And if you choose to love, do so unconditionally, because loving with conditions conditions the heart, not really love at all. This is Atreyu Locs, and I will see you next week. Peace.